See, what we find is that, to give you an example, there was a very large apartment of 20,000 square feet. Do you know what is the FSI consumption in this 20,000 square feet apartment?
Maybe 8,000, 9,000.
7,000. Now, okay, when you're talking about, you use the word chori, so I'll reuse it. Of that's proportion. You know. And you want the public to look at the developers, you know, in good light. How are they going to do it? Tell me. I mean, I'm asking you a very straightforward question. I'm a part of the industry. Don't misunderstand me, right?
We are all part of the industry in one way or the other.
Right.
I think that is the reason the BTC rules have come into effect, frankly speaking.
Level playing field, like you say.
Not it's a level playing field. Some of the developers have misused the powers given to the MC. And, okay, but that does not mean you talk about entire industry in that sense. Maybe some of the people have done it. And it happens like this, one person gets scotch free, the other person says, oh my God, he is making money by that and nothing is happening. So I'm being honest and I'm not getting out of it. So it was like that,
Sure.
and that greed.
But imagine, I mean, you opening the newspaper, right, and seeing an advertisement which offers a flat with a forest on every floor. I'm sure you've seen this, right? I mean, you begin to wonder as a buyer that where is this FSI coming from? I mean, what is happening? I fully agree with you. The DC rules have at least changed that. And the best advantage to my mind of this new DC rule is that from the buyer's perspective, if he's looking at 2 or 3 or 4 options, they become comparable.
Yes.
He's able to compare those 3 or 4 options. You know, otherwise, you know, at one place he was told certain area, another place third area, and
we face this major problem whereby our rates used to look high. However, our carpet area was big. We were telling them the carpet area, where some of the developers in nearby, they were not telling the carpet area, they were just telling the usable area, number one. Number two, there are a lot of add-ons which were not there in our case. But the customers are smart. What ultimately they see is what is the final price, what is the value I have to pay for what area. And when you are transparent, when you used to tell that this is the carpet area, and the floor bed, your dry area, which are there, which we are getting free of FSI, we will give you free. And when you have that kind of transparency, we used to get benefit. That these people are transparent, they are telling what is carpet area, and used to say that you can measure it and take it. These other areas which are there, like balcony or floor bed we call it, dry balcony, you will get free, which will not be part of carpet, so it's not part of your sales value. And even we have that parking charges free. Nothing like infrastructure charges or development charges. So ultimately they know what they are paying for what area. And then when they compare apple with apple, then they realize, what is the
Atul,
price.
are you selling on carpet area now?
No, we are selling on sellable area, but we are mentioning carpet area. Right from the day when we have been selling on carpet area, rather talking about carpet area and selling on sellable area. Whether you sell on carpet area or sellable area, for me, I tell you frankly speaking, it will make difference as long as you are telling what is your carpet area, which is very important.
Yeah.
So if I tell you the carpet area is this much and this is the value, okay, whether on carpet the rate becomes high or on sellable the rate becomes low, people are very smart. They say that this is what area I am getting and this is the price I am paying for it. Fine.
But tell me, are you really mentioning the carpet area or usable area?
No, we are being selling
All the ducts which are covered and all that?
which is not there.
Which
as
are
part
not
of
there.
the carpet area.
Okay.
Even today, I don't have a brochure with me. If I will share with you, we go anywhere, you will get the floor plans where you will talk about carpet area and you will mention these are the floor bed. Every room has got a floor bed, which in old DC rules used to get free. Why not give to the customer? We will mention that these are the areas which are not included in carpet area. Even the dry balconies, two dry balconies, one is kitchen,
customers are yet not prepared to hear a rate on carpet. I'll talk you about a micro market like, say for example, Goregaon. As soon as you tell them that the rate on carpet is 18,000, 20,000, they think that your product is overpriced. If you tell them the rate is 10,000, 11,000 on saleable, it's something which digests, So I think it'll take time,
No, that is because other developers are not doing the same thing.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
not very, no, even
Yeah.
if they start
If
doing
everybody
it,
starts doing it, no issue.
I
And
think
I think
everybody
it's time.
includes the government because the ready reckoner has to be on carpet,
That's
which is not built up
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Even the stamp duty you're paying on builder.
Yeah, the stamp duty you're paying on built up. So if you want to start in the right direction, the ready reckoner has to be carpet. Gaurav, you made a point, and I want to kind of take off from there on timely completion of project. And I want you to elaborate on that because I want to bring out the hidden cost or the hidden increase in price for every 6 months or a year that the project gets delayed. So how do you feel about it?
if you look at our industry, it's a kind of industry where you sell today and you deliver after 4 years. Very less industries working that way.
Yes.
So when I sell a product to an end user, my price with him is fixed. Whereas I have to give him a delivery after 4 years. So I have built in my costs based on certain assumptions which are going to happen over a period of 4 years. And what has happened over the past 4 years, 5 years in the industry is that a lot of new taxation regimes, a lot of inflation, a lot of projects being stuck because of permissions, new policies, okay, then lack of finance, economic downturns, all these, if you combine them as a factor, has led to delay of projects. So if you look at it from a developer's perspective, I'm sure historically, if you talk about Bombay perspective, used to talk about a 35, 40-story tower costing in the range of 2,000, 2,200 rupees on saleable perspective 4 years back. But if you want to do the same thing today, it will cost you roughly around, I think, in the range of 4,000, 3,800 to 4,000. So in 4 years, your cost of construction has increased almost 50%. Whereas if you've sold some goods at that time, keeping that construction cost in mind, you can't go to your customer and tell him that since my cost has increased, I want a difference from you. This is only construction perspective. I'm not taking into account the costs which have changed because of government policies, because of certain premiums coming in, because of your service tax, because of your VAT coming in the industry. 4 years, 5 years back, I think real estate was the only industry which hardly had any taxes other than stamp duty. But now you have variety of taxes coming in. Plus taxation is another cost which has increased. Cement and steel excise duties have gone up in this budget. So impact is there on construction again. And the other big cost is the interest cost. That is one of the biggest costs which a developer has to face because of the uncertainty environment. Sometimes your sales become slow. I think you were mentioning a period, in Bangalore where certain customers they refuse to pay up. So that is a content which a developer also has to take into account. That he can't reduce prices. So if he
Can I
doesn't,
go back, Gaurav, on what you said? Because you talked about two kinds of sales. You talked about product that is sold on which the construction cost is hurting you, right? And you talked about products that are not sold. Obviously, what you have not sold, you can price it differently and take into account that increase of cost of construction and build it into your price. Am I right in saying that? Right. Now let's come back to the product that you have sold, right? How do you charge your customer? You charge on the basis of slabs?
no, charging is always done from
Charge
day one.
means, I'm saying that how do you recover the money?
It's based construction initially.
Construction, progress, right?
Absolutely.
So if the construction is progressed by 5%, 10%, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to ask you a frank question.
Yes.
Right? You mentioned that your construction cost is 4,000 rupees per square meter, or whatever it is. 2,000 was now. To my mind, the increase is not 100%, but let me for a moment accept that fact that it's 100% increase, right? the monies that you recover have relationship to how many levels you've added, how many floors you've added, right? Now, what is the cost of adding that floor as a percentage of the 2 or 4,000 rupees that you mentioned?
In what sense?
Like, we are talking about edifice and we are talking about a completed building,
So talking about structure and everything.
correct? Now, the structure cost in the 2,000 rupees per square feet was how much?
Around 800 rupees.
I'll accept the 800 rupees. I think it's less, but anyway, all right. Taking it as 800 rupees per square feet out of the 2,000, and all the payments which are coming into you are related only to that 800 and not to the 2,000, right? You will have got 80% of the payment when the structure is ready, okay? So,
No, even the finishes also keep on going around at the same time. It's 4 stories below. You keep on finishing them. So the
Agreed.
finance is utilized
Agreed.
for the structure as well as the finishes which take place.
agree. What I'm trying to say is, and don't get me wrong, I
No,
mean,
please.
all that I'm trying to say is that all of that is funded by the buyer,
Absolutely.
you know. I mean, it is not strictly your money which is going into that, but it's the money of the person who has bought it. And I'm talking about the sold flats. I mean, with his money, you're completing the construction. On the contrary, it's a negative working capital situation for you because you might be recovering more than what you're spending on construction. Now, if the construction cost goes up when he is paid for that construction cost, you know, who do you blame?
No, I'm not blaming the customer as such. You know, I'm not blaming
No.
the customer as such.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you know, that this is one of the risks in the industries which exists. You know, that is
No,
the
I
reason
know a
that
couple of
develop-
leading developers. I know a couple of leading developers who are working with their legal department to get invoked appreciation and depreciation clause. Suppose tomorrow construction cost goes up, buyers will have to pay. Sir, do you think that kind of a model will work?
I don't think so.
I think I can talk from a Maharashtra perspective that you know we are bound by the
Because
law.
for the buyer to accept that,
Yes.
HDFC will have to accept that, LIC will have to accept that, because the person who's lending money. See, the buyer has, and Atul, correct me if I'm wrong, he has a certain amount with him when he comes to buy the flat. The balance he's going to fund it from a loan,
And that balance is normally 80%.
maximum, because you're not allowed to now exceed 80%, as you know, right? Let's assume it's 70% or whatever it is. Now, once he has borrowed that 70%, and if the price goes up, how does he meet the difference? He has no money. He's paid his 30%.
Yes.
Khatam.
So banks will not accept this clause.
And even under MOFA, if you look at Maharashtra, the Maharashtra Ownership Flat Act, you can't go back to a customer demanding more. The guidelines very clearly mention that.
For the
And I don't
unpaid
think it's
amount, you
happening.
can take interest,
Yes.
which is allowed, as you know, but
I think your discussion, what I saw, two perspectives. One perspective from the buyer side and one perspective from developer side. This is the typical perspective of a buyer, you know, he says things like, you know, I have already paid 75%, 80% of the amount. Okay, where is my flat? And I'm going to get the flat after 1.5 years, maybe 2 years, whereby I already paid 70-80% of the money. But that is the agreement which he has signed on the day one, and this is what the developer has been telling him, that you have to pay as per the slabs. And he is paying as per the slab. Okay, number one.
did he have a choice?
Given the
That's what I'm
choice,
saying.
given the choice. You remember
No,
last
sure.
month,
Even from the buyer's perspective, yeah, I got your point. But as he, Gaurav sir said correctly, from the developer's point of side, he is taking a big risk. When he buys a land, he is putting money, borrowing from somewhere, he buying the land, and he is not fully aware when he get the permissions. So the clock is ticking, the interest is on. Okay, so already he is taking a lot of tension on his head. Okay, it's not a simple job for the developer where people say, oh, developer, they keep on making money. But the kind of risk they take, the kind of tensions they go through, the liquidity crunch they face, on top of it, the permissions, which they don't know when they will get. Nobody can predict whether within 6 months,
Policy
6
changes.
years, policy changes, taxation.
So,
And as he said correctly, which we have also faced, in our phase one, when we launched the project by the time we completed, it was absolutely at a loss. You will be shocked to hear this, that developer completed a project at a loss.
Even
The
one
simple
more.
reason for that, by the
But-
time the
yeah.
construction started, the prices of cement, steel increased like anything. The commitment of amenities, what we gave that time, the prices of those amenities, whatever we committed, we delivered. Obviously, we got a goodwill out of it and we could make money in next phases. But if somebody, if I tell somebody that we were absolutely at loss at this phase, they will say, what you're
I think
talking about?
for Ravi's benefit,
Yeah.
you as a developer tell me that if some of the uncertainties are removed, like the plan approval, I'm not talking of removing the uncertainties which are commercial. Prices going up and down, market changing, we are all willing to take that risk. The risk that you mentioned, which is giving you hard time, and heartaches, risk which you are not able to foresee. Environmental clearance not coming through, right? BMC taking a long time to to approve your plans. Suddenly you get hit by some forest land, You don't know, because you're developing next to government, where there's an ST depot, and you find that you are in the forest and he is not. How come, Now, all of those things, if they were removed, how much can you reduce your selling price? By what percentage point? In other words, what is the risk factor that you are building in for these uncertainties?
I think it will be around 20-25%.
Now, I think that is the answer, Ravi, for you, that all prices across India can come down by 25%, and you are hearing it from a developer. If all the ifs and buts are removed.
Yes.
Not the ifs and buts of economic condition and commercial risks, regulatory, and things which are not expected and come and hit you, causing delay of the project.
So imagine, you get permissions, and all of a sudden there is a change in policy with retrospective effect, and your permissions
The
are
new
cancelled.
The new DCR coming in.
How you can take this kind of thing, and can you go and tell the customer, say, no, I'm not bothered about what are your problems?
This is
Who I understand
You're
the
right.
developer's problem.
There-
I think
There is one road in South Bombay where all the buildings which are under construction have been asked to resubmit their plans. I'm sure,
So
we know.
policy ambiguity is one part of the whole story. As far as construction cost going up, all the developers are craving about it.
Ravi, one
My-
more thing I would
yeah.
like to add in this is, that if you look at Bombay, particularly, what our experience has been is that definition of high rise 4 years back was 20-story buildings, 15-story buildings. 4 years back, people started constructing 40, 50-story buildings. It's very funny, even we didn't realize it till the time we actually did it, that the construction cost severely changes once you go above 25 stories. It's not simply based on percentage, the number of floors increase versus percentage. It is really funny, the way construction cost changes, your structure cost changes.
But
Anything above 30
Gaurav,
stories.
don't you think a penthouse at 25th floor gives you the returns?
No, it does. I'm not saying it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying, where a developer, we've experienced it. We didn't realize it ourselves until we did it. Like, you must have seen it. When you actually complete the building and you compare your construction cost as to what you had estimated, it is very different.
No, at times I wonder, as a layman I wonder, I can understand a developer with only 1 or 2 projects and he's talking about the cost of construction going up. But a developer with huge land bank in a pipeline visibility of say next 20 years, while he is craving about the construction cost going up, he is not talking about his inventory, his land bank, which is the main raw material. Appreciate it.
I think
No,
what's
I would like to take this up slightly
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
And I want to confront the 2 developers here. Now, I would like to ask Atul, what is the price at which he is selling his commercial office space or residences?
Commercial office space, I can tell you around 13,000 per square feet.
All right. Now, how much is the construction cost?
Around 4,000
now, which is 30% of your sale price. Assume that the construction cost has gone up by 20%. So it's 20% of 30%, which is 6%. Do you mean to say that the 6% will hurt you enough to complain?
Why? It's
Maybe yes.
Or to
maybe
get
no.
the project stalled.
No. I think it's not we're just talking about the increasing cost of material. What we're talking about is a combined effect. In that, the increasing cost of construction is one part. As you said correctly about the interest cost, about the cost involved in getting approvals, which we don't know. Then you buy the land.
Well,
Even
actually, the
that-
biggest cost nobody's talking about here, the biggest cost that all of them have been hit, and I'm now talking for them, is that to regularize areas that they've constructed, they'll have to pay 60% of ready reckoner rate
Yes.
to the government as a premium to get 35% extra over FSL. Right? They were not paying that before. Now they're paying it. 60% of ready reckoner rate is a huge amount.
Which increases
No,
every
for
year.
us, that is not the case because as I said, that we have been selling at a cafeteria and that, CC what we have got, that is very clear. The new project where we are talking about, obviously, you get additional 35% than FSM what you have. Okay, so if it is clear from the day one, no issues, even it will not pinch developer. But if it is happening with
That's
retrospective
where the
effect,
problem is.
Yeah.
there the
But see, that
problems are.
35% was being constructed all this time. Correct? So who was benefiting by that 35%? The developer?
In our case, customer.
The developer. The customer is getting that 35% now. Now who's getting that 35%? The government. Okay? So we have replaced the developer by the government. And that 35% is now going into the pocket of the government instead of the developer.
So how the customer will get benefit?
No, 40% is still with you because they are only charging 60.
You have to pay something to the landowner as well.
Yeah, true.
No, actually.
No, I'm doing it in a lighter vein, but
Yeah.
I think in any market, it's how does the price discovery take place? If you go to see as a developer, like you rightly mentioned, previously funny things are happening in the industry. Out of one, you could have made 2, 3, depending. But what we realized is, that the maximum benefit of this was getting passed on to the landowner. When you were bidding for projects, that's when you were passing on the maximum benefit to the landowner. So as a developer, you had taken into account that was part of your cost. Now what has happened in the industry is, like you said rightly, that when they got out this policy, they assume, that the land cost will go down. When we are negotiating with landowners today, what we are finding is that, they're very smart people. All of them know how much you can build, what is the realization which you can get. And they start speaking to a developer from a per square feet perspective. All of them tell, that earlier you're getting 1 lakh square feet, you were paying me 10,000 rupees, so I was charging you 100 crores. Now you're getting 80,000 square feet, but my price still is 10,000 rupees a square feet. You pay me 80 crores. So if you look from a developer's perspective, his land cost per square feet has not gone down. And that's what the major difference is. On the contrary, they're finding it increased. So I think that's where the majority of the thing is that a lot of benefit which people assume developers were making was actually getting passed on to landowners. They were the real beneficiaries.
I think one more aspect, that perception about, being a developer is a fantastic thing. You can make money very fast. There are a lot of developer, short-time developer, rather, few people who came to become developer and become overnight rich, and they realized that it's a different ballgame, and they suffered a lot. And in that, even the customers suffered. So it's not that it's so easy, and people make money out of it. There's a lot of risk involved. A lot of cost
let me
involved
give
which
you
is
a
not-
typical example of a limited company which is listed. We decided, not a property company, something into media, etc., decided to start development. Okay. And they announced a project of 4 buildings, 4 towers. The next thing they did was announce the booking. So he sold 25 flats in Tower 1, 20 in Tower 2, and so on and so forth. But all 4 towers, he sold something, something, something. End result, he had to start construction of all the 4 towers because he had sold
Yeah.
it. Okay? As opposed to somebody smart like Atul, he will announce one building at a time. You know, वो पूरा भरेगा, then he'll announce the second building.
Yes.
Or when he's 80% sold out, he will open the second, third. Now this is the difference between an established, experienced developer
You already burned your fingers.
who already
No, even I will now play devil's advocate and defend you, but you will have to come out with an answer to this. You say the two of the developers, you say, and rightly so, that there is an ambiguity as far as ECB in real estate is concerned, and we all agree with that. There is ambiguity, and that is one of the reasons that so far nobody has tried out for this. But don't you think it's not about ECB? Real funding in real estate in any form, whether it's with private equity, whether it is IPO, is a challenge, and it's surrounded with ambiguity.
One of the biggest challenges for the
The sector has so far failed to evolve a formula where funding can be a legitimate funding and something that can be channelized in rightly into the projects. And who is to be blamed for that? Now you, the two of you, can speak on this. Who is to be blamed for this?
I think if you see that 6% of our GDP is contributed by the real estate industry, and still it is ignored in every budget. As far as funding is concerned, if you see really governments helps in getting funds to the developer, it will definitely help in getting houses, and that also at cheap rate. When you are talking about affordable housing, you start giving funds to the developer. You don't look at them, that they are cash cow. You just make money from them by taxing them more and more. You have got now VAT, service tax has been increased. You have got stamp duty increased to 5% on the total amount. What you are talking about? What you are talking about? Affordable housing. Even the affordable housing which were there, because of this 9% increase, which is recent one, the prices have gone up. And what about funding? The developer has to look for funding. If at all he will not make profit, he cannot think of any other project. For his survival, he has to make profit, whereby he will put that money in his next project, which again is a big risk. He is not aware what will happen to that project. And look at from the developer's point of view, that if you keep on funding it, if there is funding available from the bank with low rate of interest, he'll be happy to sell the money. I will sell the apartments at lower rate.
I think
Sir, I have a question for the two of you. What is an acceptable debt equity for a developer?
3
Let's take 2.5. Would you agree with that, Atul? Or? Okay. How many developers that you know are within that band of 2 to 2.5 debt equity? And honestly, we must take all debts into account, including the unsecured ones, साहूकार से लिया है जो भी है. Whatever they have borrowed, even at 36%, should be taken into debt. Accordingly, in equity, you can't take quasi-equity. You have to take pure equity. If you got some money by doing some advance selling, you can't take it as equity.